welcome to the Village Planning Board meeting. I want to open the meeting with an apology. I forgot to introduce our newest board member, our last meeting, which is here to my right, Debbie Edwards. So we're glad to welcome you. And again, I'm sorry I didn't introduce you the last meeting. The next scheduled meeting is the 18th of December, but unfortunately, we don't have very much on the agenda. I think there's maybe one on the agenda then. Everyone else has asked for a postponement to until January. So I'd like to postpone the meeting on the 18th. Not postpone, we won't have a meeting on the 18th. Then we get into January. In January, the first and third Mondays of January, which are the traditional Village Planning Board meetings, are both holidays. So what we'd like to do is have, after tonight, our next regularly scheduled Village Planning Board meeting would be on Tuesday, January 16th, correct? Right, we're good? Okay.
Right after King Day.
Right. The Tuesday after Martin Luther King Day. So
If that works for enough board members, and
Yeah.
the board would like to make that motion, we'll work
I
on
so
on
move.
scheduling that.
yeah. All right, so
So we postponed the 18th of December, that's gone now?
correct.
Okay.
So Amanda, are you good on the 18th, the 16th of January?
So that's a change for the date. So are we the 2nd of January then? Are we
That's
doing the 2nd?
That's a holiday, I think.
That's actually the Tuesday, but a lot of people are not going to be, a lot of board members are.
New Year's holiday.
Yeah, are
it's
still on holiday for that one, so I don't think we'd have a quorum
Sunday is-
for that. So the only meeting in January would be Tuesday, the 16th.
Okay, I'll just make that's fine.
Okay, so I'd like to, is there a motion to cancel the 18th of
cancel the
December?
18th
And
and
our
move
next
it to the
meeting, and
16th of
only
January.
And our only January meeting will be
And
Tuesday, the
January
16th.
16th, Tuesday, January 16th.
Motion second,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay,
The ayes have it.
the ayes have it.
Thank you.
Alex, Kathy, anything else on housekeeping before we get into the agenda tonight?
I don't think so.
No, I don't think so.
Okay. So first on the agenda is which application?
I believe for a written decision, the board has the application for 649 Hill Street.
Right.
And I believe the council has shared a draft written decision for your review. This is for a subdivision sketch plan.
Right, and has everyone?
Correct. Thank you, Alex. I believe you all had a moment to review it. It's a 3-page, fairly straightforward decision. This application lacks in several aspects of zoning, and it also is contrary to the comprehensive plan. So I believe the decision speaks for itself. If it doesn't, feel free to give me any questions you have.
Yep, every board member had a chance to read it.
Yes.
Any
Yes.
questions? So we can move
As
forward.
revised,
As
I can approve it.
Okay. So I think John, do we vote on that? Or I thought we voted.
Yes.
We vote on
So-
your brief.
You can vote to approve the written decision, or the decision as written.
Okay.
The last page should have signature, or vote
Right.
lines for the
All right.
tally.
So a motion to approve the decision as written.
I'll move
Thank
the
you.
motion to
Second,
approve whatever it's.
all in favor of the written decision that we've all
The
reviewed and not asked and have no
Holidays,
questions.
holidays at 649 Hill Street. I'll move that we vote for its approval or disapproval.
Okay.
Motion.
Let's take a motion. Second?
Yeah, second.
All right. All in favor? Aye.
The
All right.
ayes have it.
The ayes have it. So,
Um,
John, is this a roll call vote?
Amanda, you've been missing
Yes,
for
Mark,
some
I'll
of,
do a roll call on this one.
Okay, do you want to call the roll? John?
I actually do not have in front of me the entire roll. Would you like
Okay.
to read it all? Oh, I could, actually.
yeah.
So, Chair London,
Aye.
Mrs. Edwards,
Aye.
Mr. McFarland,
aye,
Mrs. Bernstein,
Aye.
Mrs. Grove Holmain,
Aye.
Thank you. So
Great,
it's
thank you.
unanimous. So, yeah,
Great, so we have a copy of that decision here, so what I'll have you do after the meeting is sign that,
Yep.
and we'll have it tomorrow filed with the village clerk's office.
perfect. Okay, thank you. Next on the agenda, are we, Alex, which one do you want to do next?
The next one I have on the agenda is RRF ACF LLC.
Wickapog.
That's at 560 Wickapog, the subdivision sketch plan. I believe the applicant had requested an adjournment.
Okay. So we'll have to adjourn, they've requested to the 2nd, but we'll have to adjourn that to the 16th, right?
Sounds right.
Yeah, motion.
All right, so we're adjourning Wickapog?
Correct.
So moved.
Okay.
Yep. All in, second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. The next one is Wool Hill LLC, 783 Hill Street. They've requested an adjournment to the 2nd. Obviously, there's not a meeting on the 2nd, so we'll adjourn that until the 16th. Motion,
So moved.
second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
The
Okay.
applicant died suddenly.
Yeah. The next one is Connemara Corp. and 52 First Neck Lane. They've also requested an adjournment to the 2nd. We'll move that to the agenda on the 16th. A motion, please.
Let's move to adjourn that.
Adjourn to the 16th.
Second.
Yep, second. All in favor?
Aye.
Great. So the next on the agenda is 865 Merrick Holdings, which is 22 Windmill Lane. Is anyone here for that?
I am.
Okay.
The applicant, I believe, is trying to get in via Zoom. Yeah, I got him. You got him? Yep. And I don't know if, I just wanted to give a summary. I'll just introduce myself. Vincent Gaudiello, with the Rayner Group. We have made an application or submission, a resubmission in response to the planning and engineering comments. This is a copy of the resubmission, so it's a little voluminous. I don't expect or didn't expect to have a response from the village's planning or engineer at this point, but I just wanted to, more or less respond to any comments that the board may have. I find the response to be comprehensive. We've identified all the documents that we have submitted, some which are being submitted multiple times, but I just, if the board has any questions of me, I gladly answer them. The applicant, David Silverstein, on behalf of 86 Merrick Holdings LLC, is he permitted to speak, or? Okay, so I think he has some comments for the board as well.
Can audio visual get him up?
His name is David Silverstein?
Yes.
Okay, we actually, I don't think we have that person before. We're not sure. He raised his hand when you guys said that. His name is Ryan Kestner, this person.
That's the architect.
He's the architect.
There's a phone number on it.
Oh, there's
There
a,
he is.
there's a person.
That's Ryan. That's the architect.
You have the last four of the number that they're not raising their hand, so I don't think we have David Silverstein.
The number would be 4506.
Oh, we got him. Okay, just 1 second. He's on the phone, so I don't, not really sure about. You wanna tell him to start speaking, because it's just a phone connection?
So he can hear us. Mr. Silverstein, can you hear us?
We can't hear him.
Because we can't hear you.
playing with the mute button.
Okay,
I do the same thing because I can't figure it out.
so he needs to unmute himself.
I just heard it.
Here we go, I'm gonna tell him.
You have better hearing. Can't hear. Did you hear it?
I know.
All right, how about if we push this to the end of the agenda? Do you want to call
Yeah,
him and
he was driving out from New York and he told me he ran into a lot of traffic. so-
That's okay. We're happy to hear it tonight. We'll just, in the interest of time, we'll go on to the next one and revisit 22 Windmill Lane. Next on the agenda is 20 to 30 County Road 39A, Brian Kelly. Anyone here on that?
I don't believe, they had submitted a recent submission. We told them there wouldn't be an opportunity for us to get comments, so they indicated they may want to wait for the next meeting unless they're joining by Zoom.
You have a John, how do you say that? Would that be? That's the only other person on.
Gagnelli.
No, he's not there for the application, he's just monitoring.
Okay.
Okay.
No, we have no one else.
So we'll move on, since there's no representative here on that one.
In
74,
that case, I might just suggest that the board, unless you're going to recall it, that you might adjourn it to the next meeting.
okay. And should we, do we need to vote?
Yeah.
For-
Do a
Okay.
roll call vote on that, Mark.
Say again, John?
We can just, let's do a roll call vote on that, just for the sake of record keeping.
Okay, so we'll, roll call vote to adjourn 2030 County Road 39A to the next meeting, which is January 16th.
Seconded.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay,
All right,
ayes have it.
74 White Street. Anyone here on that one?
This application, I believe, had been previously adjourned to December 18th. So if that meeting is canceled, that'll carry over to the next meeting.
Automatically, or do we need to vote?
I'll refer that to John.
Let's just do a vote on that one.
Okay.
Same procedure, roll call vote.
All right, so
Same
Yeah.
motion.
same motion to roll 74 White Street to the January 16th meeting. Second,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
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 All right. I don't have anything else on the agenda beside 22 Windmill. Alex, do you?
No, the only thing we had on the agenda here was the setting the next meeting date, which we've already done.
Yep.
And I think the board has the draft 2024 meeting calendar for the rest of the year to
Yep.
look at. So as soon as we're able, it'd be helpful to approve the meetings for the remainder of the year.
Does everybody have that in their package?
I think we had
Oh, we
distributed
got
it
that before.
last time.
Alex sent it to us before.
Mm-hmm.
I've got it somewhere.
Here it is. The calendar?
Yeah,
Yep.
thank you.
Sure.
And I think basically we followed the same practice that the board had been doing, which is I believe, the first and third Monday of the month, except when there's a
This is all
federal
right.
holiday.
Okay, so the 2024 draft planning board calendar, we'll vote to make this the official calendar, right?
Sure, subject to any changes that might come up during the year.
Of course. A second?
Second?
All in favor of adopting this calendar? Aye.
Aye.
Okay, all right.
Thank you.
Are we ready on 22? Right, you need a couple more minutes.
He's not gonna be here in time.
Okay,
He did indicate that he can hear you, he's just having a hard time with him being able to
okay.
communicate. But, just to give you some background here, this application was initially submitted. It was not deemed not complete. We had made a subsequent submission, which did not have any engineering comments. Now we have engineering comments. So now with the planning comments and engineering comments, in essence, that's where we are. And we've responded to that. I will just say that within the comments received, there have been, or were certain types of references made to easements, status with the health department, groundwater conditions, drainage, etc. All those and that information is in here. We've been with the health department on this application for almost a year. And at this point, the only pending item with them, obviously, a secret determination from this board is one of them, but the fact of some dimensional relief with respect to property line to leaching structures with our sanitary system. There were questions about the dumpsters on the property. They're not ours, they're our neighbors. They're required to be removed. So all that information, et cetera, has been brought before the board in this resubmission. One of the items that was asked for was an aerial underlay of some of our drawings. We've done that for clarity purposes. There were some criteria identified in the memo that kind of indicated that we were substandard with respect, for example, aisle width along the right-of-way. We are taking an existing aisle width and utilizing it. Some of the asks, or I guess the comments, not so much asks, but are based upon the site conditions and the best we could do. We take care of all our stormwater runoff on our property, which is kind of contrary to all our neighbors. So I think after the planning staff and the engineer has a chance to chew on the resubmission, I'm sure we'll be back and we'll, respond to the board accordingly.
Great, thank you. Any questions?
I just have one other question as well. There was a comment made by the engineer regarding our pervious pavement section and whether the fact that we were having a pervious pavement in our sanitary system in that same location, whether that constituted a leaching structure, quote unquote. We have spoken with the health department on that, and they don't see that as being the case. And I would say that being that is an item that would likely, if it was something, it would be identified in a notice of incomplete application, of which we've provided this board with a copy. I guess where I'm coming from is the health department doesn't just randomly respond to comments by an applicant as the result of maybe a third party asking the question. So I would say that should your village planning consultants or engineers have any questions regarding the status of our application, I would strongly advise them to contact them directly. As someone who represents municipalities, if I have a problem with someone who's proposing something, I'll get on the phone with the engineer, identify who I am and who I represent, and they're usually very forward about responding to that. It's just that that's not a practice of the health department for me as an applicant to ask them to respond to a question in writing so I can submit it to you guys.
Understood.
Thank you.
Yep. Kathy, do you want to comment on any of the technical aspects of this application?
We just got it the other day, so I
Okay.
really haven't been able to dig into it. The only one thing was, can you hear me?
Yep.
Can you hear me? Is related to the parking calculations that appear to, refer to the required spaces being 60% of 12, whereas it would be 60% of the required parking for the proposed use, which is 41. So that's something that I know is that the building inspector is looking at for this use was related to the parking.
Yep.
So.
Any other questions?
May I add something quickly?
Sure. Yeah.
So Ryan Kess, an architect here. I'd like you to know that we are making an application to the ARB concurrently with this at the moment. And the building is just in terrible condition.
Yep.
It's in danger of being lost. There's only so much you can do to save a structure of this nature. So I know the client would like to move with all haste. I understand that you are adjourning that one meeting. And I get it, but if there's anything that we can do, because this is a pre-revolution building. There's not many of these left.
Yep.
So I know it's important to him to try to save it, I'm sure it's important to the village, so I don't know if there's anything that we can do just not to lose 2 weeks or whatever, but it would be greatly appreciated by everybody.
Ryan, this application is gonna have to go to the zoning board of appeals for parking relief in addition to the architecture review board.
Right.
I know the zoning board appeals application hasn't yet begun, so I don't know if we're expecting something, is there something that would need to happen to the building within the next few weeks? If that's the case, you may wanna reach out to the building inspector to talk about some, emergency repair work, because there's nothing that this board would be able to do in that kind of timeframe.
Especially
Yeah, so, I
without
mean,
that
I
variance.
would imagine
Right,
we're gonna have
yeah.
to start shoring it up and stuff like that, so something, it's, something's gotta happen here, I don't know the quickest way to do this at the moment, and I know that it's in disrepair, so any assistance that anybody can give us to get us moving would be so greatly appreciated.
Yeah, Ryan, the planning board can't vote on this until that variance is in place, so, what Alex said is good advice, is talk to the building department and see if there's some emergency. Any other
I'll
board,
reach out to Ken.
emergency?
There are windows open.
Ryan, are you able to pull up the plan so the board can see?
Expanded.
It may be helpful, just to make the best use of this time, if you could walk the board through the changes in the parking and the refuse enclosure and what happens in the back of the property. I know those are all things that we had talked about last time, just so we can all understand how that's being addressed, if the board thinks that would be helpful.
I would leave that to the representative from the Rayner Group.
Yeah,
I have the
drawings here.
If you're able to put them on the
Stuff.
table, I think that might be helpful at this point.
Just also for a second on the parking, we had talked about the applicant doing some research in terms of going possibly to the trustees and investigating whether some of the village-owned property behind the building could be utilized with an agreement for some additional parking.
Yep.
So I don't know if that would expedite potentially the application, but that's something that we wondered if the applicant had had a chance to investigate whether they could submit some kind of proposal to the trustees or just research
if you
whether
have
that is in fact village property and could be utilized potentially for additional parking.
We have.
Do you have C 2.1 with the aerial? Because I think that might be helpful to the point that Willa brought up. And if you're able to face that to the board and leave it on the table,
Yeah.
we'll be able to
Yep.
pick it up for those following along at home.
And
I park in all the spaces. Because the jewelry.
So if you could point out that there's how many spaces in the village parking lot are being removed in this scenario? Okay.
Wrist. I go there all the time.
So looks like 1, 2,
Yeah.
3, 4,
We're
5, 6.
proposing 8 on-site spaces, including 2 handicap accessible spaces, and then 1 village space would be eliminated with respect to the realignment of this 1 space, which is right here.
Understood. And have you been in touch at all with anyone at the folks at DPW about the municipal parking lot?
We have not.
Okay, understood. And then, so I think in one of the plans it's showing, is there a refuse enclosure under that stairs? Can you talk about how the refuse pickup would work?
These 2 dumpsters
Mhm.
are not ours. They're used by the property immediately to the north of ours.
Right, and those would be removed.
So those would be removed.
That's rotations.
That's
And-
right.
And that back area, in essence, of our property is used for drainage purposes. The refuse enclosure for this would be located off the rear of our building, up against this wall. And I believe provisions are also being made within the interior of the building for refuse or storage, disposal, et cetera.
How would that get picked up? Is there a way that a truck can access that space?
Well, it's movable, it's not intended to be required to be lifted or moved by a vehicle. It could be pushed into the parking lot and basically rolled into the parking lot, loaded, returned, and placed back at the same location.
Is there an issue getting it up and over the curb there? And I'm assuming that parking space on the end would have to be empty for that to work, I guess?
Again, as far as what's shown on our plan right now, we call it out as, it's a small, it appears on drawing C2, and just scaling it quickly, it's about 3 by 5 feet, so it's a small dumpster, if you wanna call it that, container, excuse me.
Gotcha. And that area in the back, that kind of triangular area that said is used for drainage, is that paved?
I'm sorry?
That area in the back where the stairs are, is
Yeah.
that gonna be paved? Is that grass? I think it
Well,
may be
basically,
grass.
this is
Oh, no,
all
it's paved right
improved
now.
with pavement, and then you go up the stairs
Mhm.
to a landing. The stairs, since the last plan that you had seen, has been rotated just for access, for the purposes of being able to get through the walkway, get up the stairs, turn around, and get into the second floor.
And that area behind that, is that paved?
No, that's lawn area.
Okay, so that's shown as lawn. Okay, I'm just trying to make sure that we understand the changes, because I think that's paved area right now, where the existing dumpsters for the neighboring property are.
That is correct.
Okay,
It's just that to get in and out of that location with the vehicle, based upon the way the alignment of the stalls are, it's pretty difficult.
mm-hmm,
And then the easement to the north over that northerly property is in favor of us. In essence, meaning that we could come over their property into ours. That's what the intent of that easement is. But, you know, just on the operations alone of rotations and what they do back there, that would put a significant gear in their operations.
Oh, yeah.
so you wouldn't be using that area for any purpose, it looks like, in this
What's that?
plan? You wouldn't be using that easement area for any purpose? That's-
No, we just have the rights to traverse through it.
Okay,
And our property is not encumbered by any easements with respect to right-of-ways, which was a question of, I believe, the planning staff.
right.
Well, it was my recollection, again, just hearing all of the stuff from you and your clients, that this is ancient.
I'm sorry?
This is an ancient facility. There's
Yeah.
you don't have to debate that with us. That's certain in the eyes of the beholders.
Yep.
It is a very confusing, as your lines say, a very confusing parking area. Unfortunately, 3 or 4 of my major vendors are there, and I go all the time for rotations. The jeweler, the toy store, and the booze dealer, and I know all the parking intimately. Finding it at different times of years is an issue. So Alex's notion that a conference with the major owner of the space, which is the village, with all this, if you can get your client or they authorize you, I think it's of the essence.
To
Yeah, we-
look at what's
Yeah.
existing on village property.
We're bound by the law, which specifies a lot of parking requirements that you must meet, and it's not a minor hurdle. It's a real issue to sustain an inventive use of this ancient property. You claim that you've now got the drainage issue under, but everybody knows increasingly that you are on a property, even going back a century or two, you are on a proper major drain for the village. You are right at the edge of the swamp. And it's water tables and the drain, you have 2 drainage areas at least, and if the Board of Health is with you, fabulous. But for that was a major hurdle to come to us to say, fire ahead. I mean, this is all solved. So if you're meeting all those,
Well, I'm not saying.
No, keep at
What
it.
we've done is we've come up with what we believe is intended to
Hey,
address the comments.
you gotta do your best. You didn't put the swamp there or the building. You're solving a problem.
The one thing we have not done is we have not got, I mean, obviously there is work that's beyond our property on village property. So the intent would be with that is whatever permit would be required of us, just like if, you were a homeowner and you wanted a new driveway and you wanted to
You
put an
bet.
apron in the village right of way, you need to make an application to the village.
Well,
Any improvements that we're showing proposed beyond our property limits that property owned by the village, obviously, we would be required to get a permit for that.
You know,
One thing
we understand
have
that.
not done, though, is really looked at the village parking and looked to see
Parking.
how that could be modified in a manner in which you could potentially yield more spaces.
Well, we
Quick
are,
question from council here. Was there ever, any written or recorded cross-access easement with the village lot to the southwest, sorry?
The southwest side.
The major parking lot, the one that would be to the east, I'm sorry, I
To the
apologize.
east, okay. Whether we have an easement over?
Was there ever any sort of, anything recorded at any time in history? I mean, I know this building has a very long history, so.
Nothing that we have in a title report, no.
Okay, understood. I just wanted to know if there was such a thing.
I think if the requirement is also a certain amount of dedicated
I
parking
think,
that's,
I think that
you
belongs
know,
to
associated with
rotations.
the business
That-
only, is there any, is the idea to
If
go to the
rotations is
ZBA
on
and
the
ask for
village
relief
property?
if we're way off on the parking, or is
I
is
believe
there?
there is an intent to
Okay.
go and ask for relief.
Okay, or is there any, thought of reducing the footprint at all so that you would need less parking as a way to, you know, expedite the
I
outcome?
Should be
I would have to
I
ask
think
the applicant.
Okay.
I'm not in a position to respond to
There's
that.
no
Okay.
yellow line.
As a follow-up to that, I read the plans as the depth of the building is at least 106 feet from front to back, if I'm looking at it correctly.
114, actually.
Right, and I think the comprehensive master plan is looking for building depth to be 100 feet or less.
Okay.
So that's also a question that needs to be addressed. No, the comprehensive master plan makes a zoning recommendation.
And you know what, those types of comments are very constructive and helpful.
Yeah.
And I think us coming here today is really, that's where we're at.
Yep.
I think some of the comments that we have had about, you know, I'll be honest with you, the pervious pavement, whether it's a leaching structure. You know, I brought that up with the health
Yep.
department, they laughed at me.
Yeah.
So, you know, I mean, the focus here is, you know, how do we make this a better site plan? And I think, you know, that's why we're here.
Yeah, and I think the mandate of the planning board is to not only consider code, but also the comprehensive master plan. And that has, since the new comprehensive master plan was adopted, factored heavily into the decisions that have been in front of us. So it's definitely worth considering and addressing in your proposal.
Sounds good.
And there's the village, you've got to talk to, the village just to you, north of you, is doing an immense bioswale on the same drain. So there's stuff going on. We're not privy to it. We're not the bioswalers. But
What's the
it may
shortfall
affect you.
on the
It's a
parking?
huge bioswale on the street, just up Windmill Lane on the right.
And
Big,
that's under construction now? or-
yep, big hole. You can take a look at it. If you drive up Windmill Lane, you know, past the police station, just to go to the dog park to the right before you get to the market, it's a big bioswale. It's a major surprise. Something's going on.
So, I don't know if you can see this. Whose property is that? Is that village or is that part of this lot?
We own that property.
And then who owns this?
So council chiming in here,
We own this,
Yep.
this is the village,
Yep. And then how about that piece just above that?
this is the village.
Okay. That's helpful, thanks.
And, Mark, if you look at these ownership maps here, we've identified, there's a table here, it's all tied to that.
Yeah, my glasses aren't
Yeah,
strong
now listen,
enough.
those half-scale drawings, forget
This
that.
says the village owns their lot.
They
so
save
there's a
room for you
line
when
mis-
you're trying to read it on the front seat of
Yeah,
your car, but
no.
that's
Yeah.
about it.
Okay.
It's a
thank
good
you.
map, but if you check the lines, the village, it says that the village owns your lot. So there's a line missing.
Well, this is our parcel right here.
Yep. Big triangle.
And then this right-of-way is over this property, this is village property here, this is village property here.
Right, so can you just draw yeah, it's perfect. Right. Okay, got it. John, did you have something, Borquin?
No, actually, my question's answered. I'm scrolling through those. Thank you, though.
There is a
So,
yellow
well, we
line
can
on that.
coordinate with the
Yellow
building
line
department to
on top of
determine what
that
the
black
required
line.
parking is. I think it's indicated
Yeah.
correctly, on the plans that it would be
And that yellow
41
line
spaces.
is rotations
There's a
and a piece of
reduction in the village business district taking for shared parking that I think would bring it down to, I think it's about 25 spaces, just based on the square footage you have here. That does get compared to the existing building that's there, but it's not deducted from the area, it's compared to what the approved use and requirement is. So currently, there's 9 spaces there. I think the requirement for the approved use would be 12. So there may be, you may be grandfathered in excess of 3 parking spaces, but you'd probably have to provide, I think it's 25, maybe minus the 3 that you get credit for. So there'd be probably something of a variance of 14 or so spaces required. That's based on some numbers that we did. But that would get confirmed in a denial letter from the building inspector that would enable you to apply to the Board of Zoning Appeals.
As far as the ability of improving spaces within the village-owned property, how would that tie into parking? I mean, obviously, the code is specific to on-site parking. Regardless of whether we would propose to improve village property with those spaces, how does that play into the variance process?
Well, it's a hard question to answer here because it'd be a question for the Board of Appeals. But one of the factors that they have to weigh in is that the impact the variance would have on the surrounding properties on the area. And certainly if there's municipal parking that's being removed or being improved, those might be things that they could weigh in as part of their consideration when they're trying to evaluate the scope of the variance and the impact of it.
The intent of a parking variance, should it be looked at favorably, and the fee associated with that, in essence, is to go into, quote, a kitty for the village, in essence, to improve parking.
Well, what you're talking about is a payment in lieu of parking,
Yes.
PILAP, as it's sometimes called, right? Where I believe the village has a fund for municipal parking improvements or something like that. I think in some other cases that's been applied where parking can't be provided on site.
Okay.
But Alex, that conversation starts with the
trustees.
Village
trustees or the ZBA?
Well, the ZBA certainly for the variance, and we could, we'll discuss with the trustees if there's a payment in lieu of parking in the code, or if there's a fund for that.
Okay.
Like I said, I know in some cases.
I mean, I see
there's
the
been-
ability to, unfortunately take some green area that's behind our buildings, behind rotations, behind shippies, and create, I'm guessing 8 or 9 spaces back there. How that plays into the application, and, again, that's something we're gonna have to chew on.
Right, and you might be able to offset that on your own property with some of the green space that you're unable to use for parking. So just a consideration.
Well, the problem is getting there.
Oh, I know, but since that's used for green space, you might be able to offset that on village green space that's then used for parking. So that there's,
Right, if you reduce the footprint somewhat, in keeping with the master plan, that you might be able to create a green space from that, claim space in addition to some parking, and then talk to the village about additional parking.
Okay.
Okay,
Sounds good.
yeah, thank you. Anyone else? Anything else? No? Okay, Alex, thank you very much tonight. Kathy, thank you.
sure.
Motion to
Well,
adjourn.
before we do that, we just might want to adjourn this application, I would think, to the next available meeting.
Tuesday the 16th.
Tuesday the 16th, is that okay?
That
Yep,
works
all right.
for
One
me.
thing I got out of this
Vinny,
meeting.
to get a new application in, Mr. Gaudiello, sorry.
I'm sorry?
Say that again?
Mr. Gaudiello, is that sufficient time for you to get everything that you need together?
Well, I think that, what we would really be looking for at that 16th meeting is comments from you based upon our resubmission, and us chewing on some of the information you provided us today. So I don't envision us having a resubmission prior to the 16th. But I do envision us chewing on, building depth, how we potentially provide more improved parking.
Okay.
Take it from there.
So-
What about correcting the parking calculation that's shown
Yeah,
on that
I
sheet?
mean,
You
we
could do
we
that.
can certainly do that.
And that way we can get the building inspector to weigh in on the actual variance that would be required, and that might get that going as well.
Sure.
Right, so we'll adjourn to the 16th, the one meeting in February, that first Monday, that should happen, but the next meeting that is, again, a holiday. So I think, over the next, for January and February, there's sort of two options, the 16th of January or the 5th of February.
Okay,
Okay?
Yep.
All right,
thank you.
thank you. Anyone?
Thank you, board members.
Yep, thank you.
Thanks,
Thank
Thank you,
Alright.
guys.
Anything else? Great. Alex, Kathy, thank you again. Board members, thank you. Motion to.
I'll move we adjourn the meeting,
S- Second.
Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. The meeting adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all.